All set.
Okay, calling the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18 of the Governor's March 15th, 2020 open order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at https://www.southboroughtown.com/. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen, the meeting may also do so in the following manner: https://www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Call the meeting to order. First up is the minutes of 9/10/2020. So does anybody have any edits, modifications? See a lot of heads back and forth. Russ, if you're talking, you're muted.
I'm trying.
Yep.
I think on the
Push that
very,
button.
yeah, but it's my mouse worn out. The very end of the whole thing, I don't believe that Sherry was there.
Oh, you're right. She had to leave to pick up her children.
So it'd be tough for her to end it.
You're right.
Good point.
You're right.
Good catch.
Thanks. Shows I
think
read them, huh?
Yes, it does.
I think I switched Mark and Sherry. It's because Mark had left.
Yeah, you know, that cut and paste thing.
Yeah. Okay. I'll switch the two. No, it will be wrong. Okay.
Any other edits, modifications? Nope. All right. Do we hear a motion to accept the minutes of 9/10/2020?
So move.
Not sure who was first, either Russ or Carl.
Either one.
Either
Okay.
one.
And do I hear a second? Well, if you're both going to move it, we want not be second.
Who first did it? Who first did it? Tell me who first did it. If Russ
Put
first did it,
Russ
I'll
down
second
as
it.
a first.
Russ is first.
Okay,
So-
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor by roll call vote.
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yep.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes. Okay. Okay, first up, we have 7 p.m. abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, 96 Mount Vickery Road, map 20, lot 18. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 22, 2020 at 7 p.m. by a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for a project located at 96 Mount Vickery Road, map 20, lot 18, the applicant Bartolini Builders. The project description is confirmation of resource area boundaries.
Do you guys
Tongue
want
twisters in that.
Oh, sorry. All the Bartolinis on?
Yeah, so Scott Goddard is here representing the applicant, the Bartolini family, and the engineering company, Bowler Engineering, is not present. So I'll be presenting for this ANRAD this evening.
Mike, do you want me to promote anyone else from your side up?
I think we're okay with just me. It's fine.
Okay.
I don't think we need the whole family on.
Okay. Just making sure.
There'll be family dispute tomorrow.
Probably.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to share my screen, or would you prefer it to be shared from your side to put up a site locus plan?
Nope, so I'm gonna,
Mr. Goddard, I cannot share. Melissa has got all the controls.
yep, so I'm gonna share my screen. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Perfect. So while she's pulling that up, this is an ANRAD that's filed for 96 Mountain Victory Road. The purpose of it is to confirm all wetland resource areas on the site. And those consist of BVW and Bank of Intermittent Stream. Now, we did receive a DEP file number late this evening. Melissa, you may have seen that in your email from the Central Regional Office, DEP file number 290-1063. Since the ANRAD was submitted, there was comments both in this DEP memo, and your peer reviewer, Matt Verrill, has issued some comments as well. We've submitted some responses to Matt's comments, but not to Judy Schmitz from DEP, but I think I can address some of this verbally this evening. So if you turn your attention to the map that was put up by Melissa, this shows the, my arrow is not going to work. So the outline of the property is the entirety of the area that's topographied here. The left-hand side of that property, or the western side of the property, is where the wetland resource areas lie. And so there's basically a BBW system along that left side of the property. And it goes all the way to basically the southern very tip of the property. The entirety of the right-hand side of the property, or in this case, the eastern side of the property, is existing single-family house, the yard around that single-family house, and then in the rear, it's more or less a pine, upland, knoll forest. You can see the fairly abrupt topography that exists on this map for much of the site. Along the wetland boundary, there's kind of an old farmer's cart path that exists there, so it's fairly well open, and the delineation follows a gentle break and slope. It's deceiving from this plan. It looks like there's more of an abrupt slope than there is. Once you get a little bit past the wetland, the slope picks up quite a bit, but right at the wetland is more of a gentle transition at that location. So there is a stream that runs inside this wetland, and the stream is depicted on the USGS map as an intermittent stream. So it has the light blue line. There was a question brought up in Matt's peer review about if this was possibly a perennial stream. I did submit late this afternoon, both to Matt and Melissa, a stream stats request done by Matt. I wouldn't normally have done this for such a small stream, one that's presumptively intermittent to begin with, but it was requested, so it was provided. And that stream stats does confirm what the intermittent status of the USGS map presumes, which is that there's a very small watershed and therefore presumptively intermittent. So I don't know if the commission needs to make a finding of an intermittent status because it's presumed that way under the regulations, but we do have an intermittent stream on here. If it's a question at all in the mind of the peer reviewer, then I would request the commission makes the finding in the ANRAD that the stream is in fact intermittent. The bank of that stream is flagged with an A series on this line interior to the BVW. And then the outer line to the of the wetland, the BVW, is the outermost wetland edge on this plan. Matt reviewed the site about a week ago. He issued some comments several days back and got those comments to me in enough time for me to review the field conditions prior to it. Really, there were two areas that he had questions about, and those are the areas highlighted with these cloud-shaped features. There were two flags that Matt recommended changes on. I went out and looked at the two flags that he had hung, his own pink flags in the field, and I thought that generally he was correct that it was appropriate to make a modification here. I didn't see it being quite as high on the landscape as where Matt put the flag. And I don't know if it was just symbolic of where he wanted me to make a change or that specific location he was requesting the change. But I did hang a new flag close to where Matt put his flag, significantly upgrading where I had my original flag to, I think, gain the goal of Matt's peer review request. So I issued a letter stating the rationale for the proposed modifications in those two locations. That was done by email. It was either yesterday or the day before, but not that long ago. So I'm not sure if Matt has had a chance to go back and review those two proposed tweaks to the line and see if he appropriately agreed with those. So beyond Matt's comments, DEP in their issuance of the file number had two notations really. One was that The ANRAD specifies BVW only, yet the plan calls out bank and BVW. So I would like to modify the request written in the ANRAD to make it so that the bank of intermittent stream is clarified as a resource area we're seeking for affirmation of, as well as BVW. I guess coupled with that would also go the finding of the stream being intermittent. Lastly, DEP noted that the very most southern tip of the site, I don't know, Melissa, if you can scan down there, the wetland delineation doesn't go quite to the property line. So they were sort of asking, Judy was asking from DEP if the wetlands sort of abruptly ends or if it goes off the lot line. And I mean, she's correct. The wetland does not just abruptly end. It does go to the lot line. So in that location, I would either need to go back and add a couple of additional flags if it was the will of the commission, or simply the commission could find that the ANRAD affirms the wetland boundary only up to that location and not up to the property line. So with that, I guess I would turn it back to the commission and your peer reviewer for comments.
Okay, thank you. I guess I have a couple of comments. One is that stream, the commission has in the past considered that intermittent for other projects that have been along that road, along that stream. Having been on the commission for a lot of years, I can attest to that. And I drive that road to get out of my neighborhood daily. And I can also attest that it dries up, dry as a bone in the summertime. So it is in fact intermittent for sure. And I think it's also identified as intermittent on the USGS map as well.
Correct. Yes, thank you.
So at least in my mind as one commission member, I definitely, am 110% sure that stream is on an intermittent. And the other question I guess I would have before I turn it over to our consultant, the Luke's Environmental / Matt, is does it at all matter to the applicant whether or not your flagging abruptly ends or needs to continue to the end, or can we just denote, as you stated, Mr. Goddard, that it just you flagged where it was and it's fact of finding, not required.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I think that finding would be appropriate. This is way down in a little narrow tip at the very southern corner of the site that would be irrelevant for any potential future development purposes.
So is there a flag number that could be identified as, okay, the commission, agrees up to flag number X, and then after that, it's,
Yes, there is.
up for evaluation. You know what I'm saying?
There is, and if Melissa zooms in on this plan, I could read it. Otherwise, I can look on my own computer while we're talking here. But I'll get that piece of information for you while we're chatting. It's a GC 45. So 45 is the end.
Okay. All right. Thanks. At this point, I'll turn it over to Matt from Luke's Environmental for some comments before I turn over the commission members.
Hey, thanks, Mark. As Scott stated, I went out and looked at the site. Had just really questions on those two areas. Where I had hung my flags was where I believe the line belonged. Wasn't necessarily just sort of a placeholder. So, but Scott indicated that it was probably within 4 or 5 feet of where I had hung my flags where he revised it to. Generally, that's sort of within the realm of professional disagreement, I would say. I'm happy to go back out and look at it and nail it down with Scott if the commission so chooses. I don't know what the plans are for the site, or if that has the potential to be a critical area, then probably requires a little bit more discussion. But I'll leave it to the commission to decide on that. Just a couple other notes. I'm fine with the stream clearly is intermittent based on the stream stats analysis, just the way the regulations are written. The presumption is it's intermittent, but sort of the backup to the stream stats is always good to have, just to get that in the record. And then also just to note, I did not review the flags that are over on, I guess it's the western part of the site that are on the far side of the wetland there. presuming that they were somewhat irrelevant for any development on the site. So if you're calling out which flags were formally approved, you might want to exclude those, and again, unless you want me to go out and look at them specifically. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I will note that the rear of the site back here is, some of the buffer zone is previously disturbed. Look like maybe for some kind of maybe firewood splitting operations or something. There are a lot of piles of brush and old firewood, stuff like that.
There used to be a logging operation back there where they brought logs in and cut them up and hauled them out or something like that.
Yeah, that kind of looks like.
It's,
what-
they used to have piles of logs.
It was a logging facility. It's still, like, he just left, so.
So that's about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they did. They didn't cut trees. They hauled trees in, did something to them, and then hauled something out. I'm not really sure what the product was that left, but
I think it was firewood.
was that what it was?
I think so. Won't bet.
I remember waiting for these huge trucks to pull in there time and time again. I'm not sure. Look down there, there were mounds and mounds of logs. So,
Yeah, it was mostly firewood, but it's,
Okay.
yeah, I have pictures. He had logs stacked like 20 feet high.
oh yeah, there were mountains. Yeah, okay, well, thank you. All right, I'll open up to the commission members at this point. So, I don't have a, so just jump in. I can't see the order here.
I've got a couple of questions if I could.
Sure, go ahead, Ben.
First, we can't quite see it, Melissa, on your screen. Could you scroll down to the southern tip of the site? Just a quick question. Okay, so a little bit north of the southern tip, there's this vaguely kidney bean shaped area encircled by, that's the one. There's no legend on here. What is that, Scott? Do you know?
Yeah.
They didn't take it off the plan. That was the proposed drainage.
Oh, okay, okay. And then with respect to that, I think I can't quite see it on mine, is that the D series all the way in the western edge of the plan that Matt didn't go out to verify. Is the applicant okay with that not being verified if we?
Yeah, it would be fine to exclude that.
Okay. That's all that I have.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Anybody else?
No.
No. So I guess one question I have is, based on where the flags are currently, based on consultant Goddard's flagging versus where, well, let me ask you, Matt. Do you know where Mr. Goddard has now moved the flags to?
I haven't seen it firsthand. It's just a description in the follow-up letter that he wrote that he said they were within 4 or 5 feet.
That's correct. It was kind of like one side of the tree versus the other side of the tree.
And then there's flag numbers, obviously.
Yes.
So Matt, with reference to those flag numbers, what's your assessment?
Well, the flags that I hung weren't surveyed in, so they're not shown on the plan. So it's hard for me to say sort of how different it may
Melissa,
be.
can you drag down a little bit so we can see those cloud areas? Thank you. Good, Matt. I'm sorry. I just want to be able to put that on the screen so everybody can see it.
Yeah, so again, it's without having the flag that I put up sort of showing on that, it's hard to say how much of a difference it would make.
Well, what
I
I'm
guess
seeing is a flag line, and then I see a darker flag dot line in both those areas.
Right.
I
So
assume the darker line is the newer flag position.
correct. The dark line is the modification. So it's the majority of what Matt has marked off. I just put it in what I found to be, a more refined location where he suggested the corrections. But it's within it's within, probably 5 feet of his flags kind of thing.
And both of those are within closer to the middle of the old cart path, I
That's
would
correct.
say. Versus your original flags kind of follow the edge of the cart path. Is that true?
Well, it's a little deceiving in the field. I mean, all the flags are kind of, partly in along the edge. There was an old cart path that someone had driven through here years ago with more or less right along the edge of that wetland.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't think any of the wetland, from what I saw, really goes into what I would call the cart path. There's, it's kind of like Scott said, kind of a subtle break and slope. I would say the change from what seems to be upland to where there's an actual topographic break is, probably less than a foot. And it's sort of right above that break where it seems like the old car path is left, but it was never, it appears to be a well-used car path like on the other side of the site. So it's just kind of the very open understory. So what you're going by on vegetation is a lot of kind of smaller type stuff, herbaceous stuff.
Okay. So I guess in terms of any bone of contention, there's 2 little small areas. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So I guess I look to the applicant does it matter to you? If it does, then I think Matt and Mr. Goddard will have to get back out there and look at it. If it doesn't matter to you, then
I mean, our preference would be to have it approved the way that we have it shown in this plan. So if that's necessary to have Matt go out and take a look at it, then we'd continue to allow that opportunity to happen.
okay, other commission members' comments?
Sounds like a plan.
That's good.
Because realistically, either way, right? I mean, if I'm going to show Matt's location or my location, I don't even have Matt's location shown here, and I'd like to have the location I have it approved. So either way, it needs to be finalized. Plus, this plan needs a stamp as well.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that. All right. So it sounds like we're continuing, and it looks like you guys need to get together in the field.
Okay.
Matt, you okay with that?
We'd be fine with that, yes.
Okay. Okay, so I think we've got to the point where we got a couple areas that need to get resolved, and we need a plan with a stamp. Okay, do I hear a motion to continue?
Mark, do you want to ask for public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I do.
I don't see any hands up, but if anyone has a question, use the raise hand feature at this time, please. All right.
No hands up?
No hands up.
All right. Then do I hear a motion to continue?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second?
All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Heat.
Yep.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Pasamato,
Yes, I failed to mention that this would be continued to the next hearing,
which is November 12th.
November 12th. So can Mr. Goddard and Lucas resolve this and get a stamp plan by then?
Yeah, from my perspective, that's probably fine if that works for Matt.
Yep.
Okay.
And I may end up, if we're going to do that anyways, I may just end up adding with Matt there 1 or 2 flags off that back end so we can close that loop too. And that southern tip.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay. Next up. 81 Breakneck Hill Road. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southfield Wetlands Bylaw, the Southfield Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, October 22, 2020 at 7:10 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 81 Breakneck Hill Road, map 21, lot 16, the applicant Hamid Hatami. Sorry if I butchered that. The project description is construction of a new home and associated site improvements. We have the applicant available?
Hello, it's Vito Colonna. I'm here on behalf of the applicant.
Oh, hi, Vito.
Melissa, I think Hamid Hatami's on the call too.
Yes, I'm on the call as well.
Oh, okay, just wanted to make sure you're here.
Thank you.
All right. We continued from last hearing. This was for new construction of a single-family house at 81 Breakneck Hill. We were waiting for a DEP file number, so that did come in maybe a week or so ago, maybe a little over a week. There weren't any comments from DEP. And so the only other kind of the items that we talked about last time were related to stormwater. And while it doesn't trigger the stormwater bylaw, we do want to offer some infiltration. So we sized up a roof drain for the roof area. It's to the south of the house. It's a Cultec system, and we sized it for at least 1 inch of runoff off the roof areas. And we put it to the south. There is a lot of ledge out there. So that area to the south, it's an area where we have some fill coming in. So the excavation only has to be, it's about 1.5 feet to 2 feet to get that dry well in, and then the rest of it's fill over the top. And on that side, down by that deep test hole 3, the closest to it, that was a good hole without ledge in it. We hit ledge in a lot of the other ones though. So that was probably the best area to locate that dry well. And then for the driveway itself, we looked at several different options, and we kind of went over those with the applicant. And we finally settled on actually narrowing up the driveway a little bit to 10 feet wide as you go through the crossing area. And then adding on, it was 12 feet. So then that extra 2 feet, we added a crushed stone shoulder. So it's 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep. And it could handle 1 inch of runoff off the driveway areas too. And we pitched the driveway to go towards that shoulder. And we also moved the low point of the driveway further. But previously it was right near the culvert, which is the closest point to the wetlands. We pushed it further towards Breakneck Hill Road. Yep, right there. So it's just outside the 20-foot buffer. So anything that does kind of stay in the driveway for some reason, you know, if you got a little buildup on an edge or something like that, it doesn't sheet flow into the infiltration trench. At least it would, if it did ever travel that way, it would go outside the 20-foot buffer at least and give a little bit of space. So then from there, it would flow basically towards the north into the wetland areas after the stone trench, and then go through the culvert down to the south. So we're trying to route the water kind of around, so it wouldn't go directly towards any abutters or anything like that also. And we also we called out on the utility pole up there. There was kind of questions on what we were going to do with that. So that would be removed. Essentially, we just said cut the pole at the base so you don't have to do any earthwork. There is a guy wire though on that, so you would have to pull that or get that out somehow. And then they were going to decommission the well also. And those were, I think those were the comments from last time, from anything outstanding.
All right, thank you. Any comments from commission members?
Yeah, hey, Vito, the rooftop infiltration, is that a single Cultec bay?
Yeah, it's one location. It's 2 Cultecs. It's the 330 XL, so the largest ones they have, or not the largest, but the largest one you'd commonly see on a house. So it's 6.5 feet by 17 feet by 3.5 feet deep. So it looks small on the plan, but it's actually fairly large.
Ben, you're muted if you're trying to respond.
Sorry. The Cultecs they're end to end or side by side? I'm just looking at the detail, trying to figure out exactly.
Oh yeah. So they're end to end. On the detail, it kind of shows it almost as one. But
Yeah, okay, okay,
there's 2 units, so they are end to end.
okay. Thank you.
Going back
Yeah,
to-
that's all I have.
Okay, anybody else? From the commission?
Sure.
Correct.
Real quick, I would imagine that guy wire's an auger, and you probably just want to cut it off below grade.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I watched them put one in at my place, and I was really amazed.
Yeah, they don't come out easy.
No, they're aggressive.
Yeah.
Also, the well.
Mhm.
Is everybody absolutely positive you don't want to, excuse me, have an irrigation well?
Um,
I'm just suggesting don't go blowing it away before you check every box.
yeah, I don't know if Hamid, if you want to speak to that at all, if you were considering keeping it. We had talked about abandoning it, but
Yeah, correct. Initially, we were thinking of keeping it for irrigation purposes, but because it falls so close within the wetland and we'd have to tie stuff into it, I figured there'd be more disturbance that way to try to make use of it than to abandon it.
Well, great, thank you.
Anybody else from the commission? Okay, Matt from Lucas Environmental, any comments?
No, I think it looks good. I guess my only comment would be, Vito, is there anything on the plan or anywhere as far as sort of something for the homeowner for, I guess, for lack of a better term, operations and maintenance, I guess mainly of the swale along the driveway there, sort of, what they should be looking for, just so that, I know it's not, sort of a pseudo informal design here, but, it doesn't do any good if it's not maintained over time in some form.
yeah, we don't have anything on there necessary for O&M. We could draft up a quick O&M, something we could add in the conditions. There's not too much you really want to do with that. You want to keep your driveway clean, so nothing, so you don't have a lot of buildup to get in there. And then if you see any, rutting or washout or anything like that, you'd want to repair some of the stone. And then I
Yeah,
guess,
I think maybe just having something that can be referenced in the order so that it's sort of
Yeah.
on the record
Yeah.
that, again, if the commission feels it's necessary, just so that it's on the record that, there's sort of something there that does need to be looked at on occasion.
yeah.
I have a question with this configuration on the side of that driveway. Is there anything raised with that gravel, or is there anything to prevent when you're, say, plowing snow off the driveway from all that snow to be pushed over into the wetland? Or how are we going to avoid having any plows push stuff into the wetland?
There isn't anything on that stone trench. That's just a flush, and it's basically level straight across. So there really isn't much for a barrier along there for snow plowing. I know we always include the condition that you're not supposed to plow towards the wetlands and everything. It's it's a little difficult to enforce all the time. When you have someone plow the driveway, obviously. So right now there's no real physical barrier through that stretch.
If I could add also, one of the other options we had from the last meeting was, I think it was Sherry who brought it up. She wanted to put the gardens in, and we decided to do this instead because it trims the driveway down from 12 feet. So that's 2 extra feet now that you don't plow over the stone. You plow over the driveway that any plow would push just barely aside. And the bulk of the snow is going to go back towards the where the turnaround is in the driveway.
Yeah, like I guess like Hammond says, your bulk of your snow removals up at the house. The strip down there is 10 feet wide, so you shouldn't have too much. As far as you wouldn't have stockpiling goes, you'd have the windrows down the sides.
Thanks.
Anything else? We have a DEP number for this, Melissa?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Any comments from the public? If so, raise your hand and Melissa will let you in.
Not seeing any.
Not seeing any?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I think we can close this.
Yeah, you guys, I guess the one outstanding was, as long as you're okay with adding that O&M as a condition, then I can add that to the proposed special conditions and get that, with the issuance of the order.
Anybody have an issue with that? Silent approval, okay.
Perfect.
Do I hear a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete.
Yep.
Geyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Have a
Good
good night.
evening. Okay, next up is Bigelow Road, and they've asked for a continuance. Are they asking for a continuance to the next meeting?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I don't see a need to read the whole thing, do I?
No.
Especially where October 22, 2020 is a tongue tire. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask for just on a point of clarification regarding this application, because I know it's been under discussion for quite some, considerable time. Can I just ask for clarification as to what the commission is actually has jurisdiction to take into consideration when we vote on this project? I think particularly, I just want to understand whether or not we need to take into account parking access and also, potential encroachment onto the abutters.
So if we're going to have any discussion at all, I need to read this in.
Okay,
Right, we can't just say we're going to continue it and not continue it, so.
all right, then that's fine.
I mean, I can read it in and we can have the discussion. Just for, Conservation Commission members' clarity on items. When the applicant isn't here, we can't really, include details of things that require any comments from them.
Okay, then I'll withdraw that request and I'll make the request at the next meeting.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Do I hear a motion to continue the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Sorry, yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Geyer,
Yes.
Gregory. Sorry. You're on mute,
Muted.
Dennis. Sorry. Gregory, you're on
You're muted. You have to unmute him, Melissa.
There we go.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
All right, Pasamato.
Yes, you can always do this,
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
but the recording won't have it, that's all.
I'll make a verbal confirmation for you. Okay.
Okay, and next up is Lot 5 Granule Road. They've also asked for continuance.
Yep, they're finally scheduled soil testing with the Board of Health. So at the next meeting, we should hopefully have an actual discussion. But they've been trying, but just hasn't panned out the time between departments.
Okay, and remind me, the next meeting is the 5th?
November 12th.
12th, I'm sorry, 12th, okay. Do I hear a motion to continue Lot 5 Granule Road to November 12th?
So moved.
There's a second?
Second.
All in favor, roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete.
Yep.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Massamato.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, moving right along, let me see. Next up is request for certificate of compliance, 23 Woodbury Road, DEP number 290-1051.
So Matt issued a revised letter, basically stating that the project is in compliance. What I thought the old order had been closed out, it hadn't. So I would also request the commission issue a certificate of compliance for 290-972 with an invalid order of conditions, because this was the work that was never done, and this 1051 replaced that previous project.
So those 290-2 what?
290-972.
Oh, 972.
Mhm.
Okay. So the first thing we should do is close out the old order.
Yes.
Excuse me, any discussion? None. Okay, do I hear a motion to close out the old order that was never executed or any action was taken on, which is 290-972?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Massamato.
Yes. Okay, then it would be the request for the certificate of compliance for DEP number 290-1051. Matt, you issued a updated review letter?
Yes, and no issues, all look good.
All right, given that, do I hear a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 23 Woodbury Road?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete.
Yep.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Massamato.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next we have a request for certificate of compliance for 74 Oak Hill Road and 2A Asari Drive, DEP number 290-999.
I think Mitch from Goddard is rejoining us in a second.
Okay,
All right.
Hello there.
good evening.
Mitch, is there anything you want me to bring up in particular?
Perhaps the as-built plan that we sent you.
Okay.
Hi there. So last time I was here with you guys a few months back, Matt from LE had requested that we go out and check out a few more things to check off our list before we get the certificate of compliance. So I'll just go down the list of things that were asked of us and what we did to find some answers. So first was provide more info on the techniques used for the eradication of the Japanese knotweed on site. There was initial removal of Japanese knotweed back in 2017 when the restoration area was first built. And once that happened, it came back, it resurged. And since then, has not been significant efforts to eradicate it. There have been attempts with shovels and such, but it would really take significant disturbance to the area. We'd need, heavy machinery, or we figured the most effective way would be glyphosate. However, it is 20 feet from the wetlands, so it was not permitted. Although the Japanese knotweed was, we did attempt to eradicate it, it did come back, and it will be very difficult to control it, in the future due to the abundance of Japanese knotweed, both to the south and north of what's shown on this map up here. On this map, you can see this little area with the hexagons. is where the Japanese knotweed is located within our restoration area. But pretty much the whole northern section, or the whole northern left corner there, just to the left of that orange hatched area, that's mostly Japanese knotweed. And then to the south of our restoration area, there's also a significant amount of Japanese knotweed. So it would require, extreme measures to really eradicate it from the area. Another aspect of what you had us go back and do was to create this as-built plan that is presented on the screen right here. And this just basically goes over all the plantings that were put in. And this is what I found out there, survivability wise. You can see that there's a few, black oaks and red maples outside of the area. I'm guessing when it was planted, they did just push it over outside of the area that they initially mapped. But I did find that there was 93% survival rate from the plantings. The areas that I could not find some plants or that may have died were in the Japanese knotweed, which was noted in Ellie's initial report, saying the Japanese knotweed was, it was covering everything, so it was difficult to find things. So I agree with that, but I did happen to find some red maples in there and some chokeberries and a sweet pepper bush. The rest of the restoration area was very healthy. We had done a cleanup in, I believe it was April or sometime in the spring. We went out there and took out a lot of glossy buckthorn and oriental bittersweet. So everywhere where there's not Japanese knotweed is all native plants. And it really looks like a nice buffer zone now. And as far as coverage goes, this map doesn't really show full coverage of what's there. There's a lot of the seed mix that grew in real well. A lot of other native plants that decided to grow in these, spots where I don't have the dots showing where the plantings were. So it's a healthy looking buffer zone. Another issue that was asked of us to work out was there was some part of the fence that wasn't up when Ellie inspected the site. And since then we have put up those posts, or rails, I guess they're called. So, there is a picture in the report showing that we put those up so that it matches the as-built plan that we originally submitted. Another thing that was brought up was the shed. There's a shed, if you can't really see it on this map up on the screen. It's a fairly new shed that was put up. It has a building permit from the town of Southborough, and it was put up by the homeowners and not by Dan Aho, the initial applicant. So, it's put on 6 cinder blocks. That's the foundation. That was one of the questions you asked us to find out. So we researched it as much as we could, but we couldn't access inside because we couldn't get a hold of the homeowners and such. So basically Dan Aho is trying to get this all wrapped up before the homeowners continue to mess with the site any further. So just keep that in mind. And also, what else do we have? Submit seasonal monitoring reports. Unfortunately, none of those were submitted. So our report for the request for a certificate of compliance and this will be considered our monitoring report up to this current point, showing all the plants that we found to be successful grown in there, and we've reached our 75% coverage of the area. So that covers that. And there was yard debris within the 20-foot buffer zone over on the 2A Asari Drive house. And we've asked the homeowners to remove that, and they have. And I went out and had a chance to take pictures, which was in my most recent report that showed a picture with the debris and then pictures without the debris. So that has been addressed as well. I believe that wraps up all the items that were on our to-do list. So at this point, I'll turn it over to the commission to have any comments or whatnot.
All right, thank you. I'll turn over to Matt from Lucas Environmental for any commentary at this point.
Just a couple things. Mitch, in the letter you submitted, you said that the plantings have been there for 6 growing seasons now.
Correct, yes.
So what year were they planted?
It would have been 2017 or 2018.
I just don't know how you get 6 growing seasons out of that, I guess.
New math.
Seems like it would be 2 or 3 growing seasons, but regardless. Another question would be is, when you went in and did the analysis here, how were you able to identify the plantings that were placed there versus things that had come in on its own? When I walked through there, it looked like that might have been a little challenging.
Yes, I agree. A few of the plants had yellow ribbons, so that was easy to identify. And there were new growth, which, you know, although they didn't have flags on them, I did consider them part of, you know, our planting scheme, because these new shoots of, you know, chokeberry and it was mostly chokeberry and serviceberry that I found new shoots for. I considered those as plantings because, you know, a lot didn't have the flags, but, you know, they were growing quite vigorously, and I considered them a successful planting.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I'll just leave it to the commission as far as a discussion on the Japanese knotweed issue out there. I know there's, you know, along that road there, there are a few properties that have just become totally overrun with the knotweed, and whether the commission feels there's any need to make more of an effort on that prior to issuing the certificate of compliance, and if you feel any additional monitoring of the other areas is needed where no reports have been submitted up until now. I'll leave that for discussion. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
All right, thanks. I'll open up to the commission members. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have one. How many reports should have been submitted?
I believe two monitoring reports.
Once a year, was it?
Correct, yep.
Yeah.
And what was received?
0.
Oh.
So I guess the intent would be that those would be like a progress report, you know, multiple reports would give us some indication of where it's going, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
2 points make a line.
yeah. Unfortunately, given how busy our town employees are and so forth, this probably went by us in terms of asking for one as well, right?
Yeah, we're not required to ask, right?
No, we're not. But if we happen to notice that we're not getting them,
yeah, oh, yeah.
can and have done that, right? So
yeah.
Be that as it is. But any other comments?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. All right. So I have a question. So surely this can't be the first time someone's tried to remove Japanese knotweed as part of something like this and, struggled because it's, notoriously awful to get rid of. What have we done in the past for COCs where, the knotweed proved intractable? Has this come up?
Ironically, I think it might for the next meeting. You guys might remember 246 Parkerville Road. There was quite a bit of infestation on knotweed there that he's trying to close out his permit. And he's tried as much as he can for several years to get rid of it, and it's not a complete eradication. So, I think the commission at this point might need to determine a acceptable threshold, but also understand that this is a plant that will take over again. And it's considering that they can only do what's on their property, it's, you gotta, I guess, be realistic, but also, hold what your original approval was. So they
Is
can
this
eradicate.
patch entirely on their property? It looks like it on the plan.
So what I've shown is only the restoration area. The
Got it.
Japanese knotweed is
I
outside
know all
there.
about knotweed. You don't need to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's on the
Sorry.
road, it's next door, so it's not just here on this plan.
My recollection here, and I'm curious if other commissioners who were here at the time remember this. I recall the removal of the knotweed being offered as sort of alternative mitigation to removing earthen stockpiles that had gone into the wetland area, something along those lines. Does anyone else remember that?
Wow, Ben, you have a great memory. I absolutely believe that you're on the right track.
I think that's what it was. And so I think that it was as an alternative. I seem to recall Scott actually discussing it and saying that it would be far too impactful to remove that material, and that alternatively they could provide mitigation in the form of removing the knotweed. And I just wanted to see if anyone else shared that recollection. It sounds like Russ, you do. Carl, do you remember that? Mark?
I don't remember. I just don't remember.
Yeah.
So is this the lot that had the sort of the mound?
Yes.
And
I think so.
okay, then I do remember that. Yeah, that there was dumping and fill that was done over time.
Yeah.
And instead of digging that all out, there was mitigation in terms of moving invasives.
Right. And I think Scott made a fair point that it would be impactful to remove that stuff, but I'm a little bit hung up on, this was the mitigation offered in lieu of removing that material. So I'm just, it's a little bit of a struggle for me there.
And this had a drain that came from the other side of the road that filtered into this area. Do I have the right lot?
Yeah, I think you do. It comes on to, yeah.
Comes under the road from the, would that be the west side?
Yeah, there was concern about flooding and, on the other side of the street.
Yeah, I can't remember which way the water flowed, east to west or west to east.
Yeah. Now I remember this. Finally came back.
So I guess what's on the table is whether or not we're okay with the restoration that's been done to date here in terms of issuing the COC, or do we want them to go out there and eradicate more of the invasive? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well,
is there a concern with it? I mean, it's continuing to spread. I mean, is there anything we can do to, if we're not going to pull it out, it
even if you pull it out,
probably
it's
just
gonna come
march
back.
down that. And what's that?
Even
I
if
know
you pull
it's
it out.
difficult. I know. Yeah. There's no real.
So I could speak to the the spreading issue based on photos that I've seen from 2017. There has been no spread of the Japanese knotweed. It's been contained to its initial extent. It hasn't, or at least hasn't significantly encroached further into the property or into the BVW.
I mean, but why would that be? I mean, eventually it's going to, right?
probably, at some point, but
Yeah, I mean, it's what it does.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, sometimes what can keep it from continuing to spread is if you do have a good canopy that kind of shades it out and you have good, robust plants that can kind of fight it off. Because it likes it really nice and sunny. So, that's why, one of the ways to try and eliminate is to smother it by, sort of putting a tarp down for a year or multiple years to starve it of any sunlight. And then once you've got an area that you think is relatively free of planting it very densely with something that might outcompete it. And I guess one other thought, maybe it doesn't necessarily apply to this project, but just sort of thinking forward to other projects where this may come up in the future is if it's going to be accepted as mitigation to remove invasives requiring, and I guess enforcing, sort of reporting on what efforts are actually being done to eradicate it, because it's not clear to me what the record shows, and I don't know if Mitch can speak to this, as far as, how much of an effort was made here? Was it they mowed it down once? Or was it more than that? Was it done multiple times? And when? Because there are, methods that are successful need to be done by qualified people at certain times a year to maximize the success. And if it's just sort of a I don't know, just sort of a quick attempt to do it and say, well, we tried and we failed, so too bad, then, that I don't think the commission would view that as acceptable. I think, so I guess thinking in the future of saying, okay, we want to know exactly what you're doing, when you're doing it, annual reports, and that, those are going to continue until we feel that you've made a true level effort to eradicate it. My 2 cents.
What did the order of conditions say about the, knotweed mitigation here?
So I was just looking at the supplemental. Let me stop sharing and reshare. So, everyone see this okay?
Yep.
So this is the 20-foot buffer zone restoration section. So let me see. So, it talks about the seasonal monitoring reports should be done in early summer and early fall inspections, and include photographs and details about the vitality of the restoration area, including photographs, etc. And then talking about the 75% survival rate. And then there's also, I'm sorry to go back and forth on you guys.
Yeah,
so this is the historic fill site there. So there is discussions on the amount of, fill that was there. So you guys were correct in that, in the replication that was needed. So then, and then there's also yard debris in the BVW.
Melissa, do you recall how it's addressed within the order?
Within the order itself?
Yeah.
I can open that.
Okay. Because to Matt's point, I understand that the removal of knotweed it's a pernicious plant, but I feel like Scott Goddard, would have a pretty good handle on what's required to remove it when he was proposing this as an alternative.
Do you see the OOC up, or is it still the other one still?
No, it's there.
Okay, just making sure. I don't see anything in the findings that talked about it specifically.
Number 5.
It's 0.5. It's 0.5, but it doesn't say what the.
It's the fill.
But that's just.
Doesn't say what he's doing though.
Yeah, and I think that's just, and then it will reference the the document that I just had up. So let me see if there's anything.
Can you do a word search on invasive,
It's not a
searchable file?
Yeah, it's a scanned in copy,
Okay.
unfortunately. They're all our standards. No pools. Just no dumping, no pesticides, no alteration. So there's nothing kind of explicit within the order. I would say the most documentation and reference that to the actual mitigation and survivability would be in this document itself.
It looks like we may have kind of missed it on this one, but I think Melissa brought up a great point that this is something that, we've got it being proposed on another project that we have been looking at, and it's something that's going to come up more and more frequently. I think we should maybe even develop some sort of standard conditions for dealing with it. I've heard 3 seasons of cut and paint will take care of it, and also the suffocation that Matt was talking about. But there are some various means that maybe we should develop, maybe not tonight, but the next time we're confronted with it.
That injections are very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the only thing that I kind of see within this document, it says during the monitoring process, invasive species will be removed as needed. That's kind of the only description of ongoing after the initial dig out of this area.
So that's pretty vague.
Right. And to what point do you, not necessarily give up, but.
And we didn't set a target. We set a target for ground cover for successful new plantings, but we didn't set a target for invasives removal. And I don't know what that target should be, but that's maybe something we should think about the next time we're confronted with this.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, Ben. I think it speaks as well to the importance of us keeping track of the order of conditions and the reporting on this, the seasonal reporting. And I know, that was, I'm pretty sure that was probably something that was on our initial scoping of the work for an admin assistant for Melissa. So either the admin person could do that, or they could do other things. So Melissa could work on these sort of projects. But I think as we go forward, I think it's just really important to find a way to kind of have that almost like a database of, the stage of each of these projects maintained, so that then gives you the data to be able to say, okay, here's a seasonal report, what's been done on the invasives next time, how much progress has been made, have they come back, have they not come back? Because that also allows us to then be able to make recommendations to the applicants and their teams around, well, what is the best approach to be able to deal with these issues.
So we never received any monitoring reports? Yet they were required to do so.
Correct.
And the order condition says that during the monitoring process, that invasive species will be removed as needed.
Yeah, and Mitch, you also talked about the 75%. Was that just 75% survivability, or was that actual surface area? Because you mentioned a 92%.
Correct. Yeah, there's 75% coverage of the area at least.
So from my perspective, and I'm just one commission member here, I would like to see a modern report, and based on the information that we received, asking for the certificate of compliance might be one of them, and that invasive species, be looked at and see what can be removed, and then we receive another one in the spring. to meet the requirement of 2 and see if any invasive species can be removed and see if we can get that 75% surface area, higher. At least 75, and I'm hearing that it's close to that, maybe more than that, but
Would you want to see that second monitoring report before or after the issuance of the COC? Because I
Before.
think, okay, I just wanted, because it almost sounded like you wanted it as a condition of the issuance, so I just wanted to verify.
No, I'd like to see the 2 that the order of conditions asked for.
Okay.
That were never received. Which to me, I'm not sure that addresses the invasive species will be removed as needed, since the monitoring reports were never provided.
Yeah, I support what Mark says.
I just don't have any proof of that. So
how about the one that we got now becomes the baseline, and next fall, we review this again. That's a growing season. The spring doesn't do us any good.
Right.
okay, I mean, you know better than I do, Russ. I just throw out spring.
I had a quick question for Matt, if I could. I know there's an appropriate time for attacking the knotweed. My understanding was actually it's like the spring, early summer. Am I correct on that, Matt?
My recollection is I think it might be early August is the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
That's
you want
fine.
Oh, it
to
is. Okay.
cut it before
Uh,
it flowers, and then, if you're painting it or spraying it, then it's by August, the early, like first or second week of August, you want to hit it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, there may be an opportunity here where if they were to, in the areas that are worst, which it seems like based on the figure that was submitted, there's an area where there's really no other plantings growing. If they were to this fall go in, cut all that out, maybe put a tarp down over it now, weight it down, and then next August, take that off, and then anything that starts to come up, treat it then. They do their monitoring, say in September. Now you've at least taken one more whack at it under this existing order, and you've gotten your second monitoring report.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I mean, that's kind of where my head's at as one commission member. Any other comments from others?
I mean, I think that sounds like a good approach for this specific one, but in terms of the ongoing process, my sense is it's going to be one of these things where I think we have to decide as a commission whether or not the onus is 100% on the applicant to basically remember that they have to meet the order of conditions and all these criteria, or whether it's something that as a commission we want to have an ongoing kind of bring forward list and send out friendly reminders to these people to say, don't forget, you've got to submit these reports, because otherwise I can see us being in exactly the same situation on some other projects.
Well, they've got a specification that we provided that they're supposed to march towards, and it's their responsibility to do that, not ours to stick their nose in it.
Okay, my observation is that I think we'll see this problem reoccurring then.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely will.
So I'm just making a suggestion that I don't believe it's going to take a huge amount. Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong. Don't believe it's going to take a huge amount of kind of tracking to be able to say, okay, here's the order of conditions that we've got currently outstanding. Okay, 1st of October or whenever it is, we say, okay, everyone needs to submit their seasonal reports by then. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we tell people that, exactly what they have to put in them, but just a friendly reminder to say, don't forget, you've got to submit these reports, because the challenge we're always going to face if we don't have more of this push-pull approach is that we're going to be sitting here and going, well, we have no data to make a decision on. because we don't have the reports that demonstrate whether or not the applicants have actually tried their very best to do the invasives, whether or not they've tried to kind of increase the restoration.
Right.
That's just, you know, I mean, we've talked about it in previous meetings that I think if we can get to that kind of level of being able to encourage
and Judith,
people to be proactive.
if I could give a thought on that, I think part of it, and I think you're doing it on this project, is, you know, if applicants understand that they can't, if they just ignore it, that when they come in for the certificate of compliance, the clock is starting on the monitoring at that point. And if they have to start, you know, if it was 2 years or 3 years of monitoring, now starts now, and they're not going to get this, they have no chance of a certificate of compliance for 2 or 3 years. That's certainly, I think, an incentive to say, you know, if you ignore it, you're doing it at your peril. You're just putting off, you know, being able to potentially sell the home or whatever it is, or having to put money up. You know, it causes problems, obviously, when there are no certificate of compliance. And, you know, builders understand that, I think. So I don't disagree that maybe having the friendly reminder isn't a bad thing, because then, you know, when they come in and say, well, we have to have the certificate of compliance, you know, this family is going to be out on the street if they can't sell the house, blah, blah, blah. And say, well, we sent letters out every October and nobody responded to it, you know, and maybe just everybody feels better to say, look, you know, you're not getting your certificate of compliance, and that's not our problem. That's your problem because you didn't follow your order of conditions. Just as if somebody hadn't put in the erosion controls and impacted the wetland, you know, it's really no different. There are special conditions that need to be followed. And if you don't follow them, there are ramifications to that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Matt. And the burden is on the applicant to unburden their property and free up their deed. And the certificate of compliance does that, right? So they ought to be paying attention to the OOC and doing what it says, and, you know, paying close attention to it.
And Judith, I think earlier you brought up in passing a very good point, which was that you know, we had hoped when we went, I think actually, yeah, you were there also at the selectmen's meeting when we were, you know, with hat in hand begging for some funds to get a conservation administrator. You know, that would enable us to take on this kind of role, which would be a great thing for the town, and certainly a money saver for folks with permits out there. You know, when we go try next time, you know, this is exactly the kind of reason that we're looking for that. Yeah.
And one other consideration that I'll throw out there for, you know, I guess future consideration is some towns for wetland mitigation, it's usually for the actual construction, not necessarily for monitoring. But you could require a bond that says you've got to put some money set aside to do this monitoring. And if you don't do it, we're going to hire somebody to do it for you. And then the town kind of takes that but has the money to actually do it, as opposed to having to hire other staff to do it, or have Melissa doing it.
Okay, I mean, good points, Judith. And certainly if we can, you know, come up with bandwidth from Melissa to be able to do that, that's you know, I think a good thing to do, a good reminder to send out. But I think here we have, you know, no monitoring was ever sent in. They're required to send 2. At least I think that they should embark down that path at this point and see what they can do to, you know, monitor report now, do what they can for the invasives, and come back in the fall of next year, and let's see what we achieved.
So I guess just to sum that up, you know, you guys are looking for a monitoring report as required in the documents submitted with the approval, which required a visit in early summer and early fall, which includes photographs and details about the vitality of the restoration area, and then the report submitted by November 30th of next year.
That's right.
Okay.
So, I mean, that is all currently documented in the OOC.
It's
correct?
It's in the reference documents. Yeah,
Yes.
that was approved over the overall permit. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't think that needs a motion to pass that. I think we basically are at a point where we're not going to approve this COC tonight, and we're going to wait until the conditions in the OOC are met.
Yeah, I'll kind of just, Mitch, I'll write you kind of like a formal letter, kind of stating what the decision of the commission is at this time.
Okay.
Just so the
You
commission
do need to
has
take
it.
a vote on the decision, though.
I mean, can I say one thing though?
Sure.
So, I mean, it has been 2 years since the work has been completed. You know, the growing seasons have gone by. You know, yes, the seasonal monitoring reports should have been submitted. I don't know why they weren't submitted. I honestly wasn't part of the company, or, you know, I didn't know Dan Aho at the time. But, you know, we're just trying to close this out. Dan Aho has, you know, almost nothing to do with these properties anymore. There's, you know, different homeowners in each lot. And at this point, you know, everyone's just trying to wrap it up. And, you know, as far as the Japanese knotweed goes, sure, if we do a year of work trying to eradicate it, you know, I don't see any progress really coming from that, considering the scope of the Japanese knotweed on both the northern side and the southern side of our restoration area. You know, if we do the tarp idea, you slap down a tarp for a year, you do some plantings after that, you know, after that year, it's guaranteed the Japanese knotweed is still going to come back. So, you know, we've eradicated all other invasives from the site. I've been there myself, picked out every single piece of Oriental bittersweet, every single glossy buckthorn out of there. You know, that way we could meet the 75% coverage of native species. So, you know, I at least did everything I could. As far as the monitoring reports go, I do apologize for, you know, not sending in 2. But, you know, I'm hoping, you know, maybe could we just decide, since it's been 2 years since we make the 75% coverage of native species, can we settle on a certificate of compliance tonight?
I mean, I'm not comfortable with that. I mean, we sort of, as I recall, you know, bent over backwards somewhat to be able to get this permitted to begin with, based on the fill that was there and some other, you know, things. And this was the compromise. And, you know, based on, from my perspective, based on, you know, putting a compromise out there and not having it fulfilled, I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable with that. As one commission member, the others can, you know, vote however they want, but.
The interesting thing about that short speech is that it sounds like the removal of Japanese knotweed as a mitigation is a fruitless effort. Because I think you probably said in so many words that you just can't get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult plant to eradicate. I've dealt with other sites where you try, and the more you disturb the soil, the more it seems to grow. So, you know, digging it out with shovels and hose and rakes can only do so much. The tarp idea, I've actually never tried. I have heard that, you know, it can be successful, but I hear that's a 10-year ordeal, not just a single year or 2-year ordeal.
I think the bottom line here is that the homeowner needs to embrace this. It's part of their yard and get rid of it. It's not just a walk away, pull it out, and all right, we met our standard, we're out of here.
Yeah.
I see you smiling, but this is the problem.
Well, no, I think
nobody wants to own their yards.
so. I agree. I agree that you know, not everyone is, you know, very passionate about their yards, especially, you know, with the fence there. It's, you know, it doesn't even seem like it's part of their yard, to be honest. And part of our efforts to clear the other invasives, the glossy buckthorn, Oriental bittersweet, we found a significant more of fill and yard debris in there. So it's something that it's going to be very difficult to get the homeowners to you know, become a part of and want to do, you know, just to address what you said there, Mr. Gregory.
I mean, okay, so to move this forward, I mean, what we can do is I can look for a motion from, you know, any of the commission members here to issue the COC and see if we get a second on a vote. And we can go from there. So do I hear a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 74 Oak Hill Road and 2A Asari Drive, DEP number 290-999? I don't think we got a motion moves. Okay, so I think, is nobody putting a motion forward? It's hard in this environment. I have to look at the screen and look at nods and things, so. Okay, so it looks like nobody's gonna put a motion forward, so I think then we're back to what the order conditions in the supplement has in it as an attempt to, you know, provide the monitoring information, attempt to eradicate the knotweed, and come back here, you know, at a point in the future, the fall of next year. And if you have documentation that shows that it's failed and it can't be eradicated, then we have more data to work on. I think that's where we're at. Any commission member disagree?
No, I think I would just say with regards to the means of removing the knotweed, I don't think we're trying to steer them necessarily towards one particular method. I think some suggestions have been made. If there's a method you feel will be more successful, I think, you know, Melissa is always there to run it by. I don't think we're, you know, demanding that you tarp or mechanically remove or cut and paint. I think you've got many options, and yeah, unless any commissioner feels differently. But I don't think we're dictating specific means.
No, and that's an excellent point, because we typically don't, you know, identify a means to be executed. You know, we leave it up to the applicant to make the determination themselves as whatever they feel would be the most effective.
Would you be willing to consider permitting the use of glyphosate?
I don't know what that is.
Roundup.
Yeah.
So it's more of an aerial spraying beside, instead of like a cut and paint.
Well, I believe the current scientific knowledge on the best way to use glyphosate on knotweed is to inject the stems. Certainly not an aerial spraying. I wouldn't advocate that really anywhere, but you know, I'm sure that Goddard Consulting has the wherewithal to do the research to see what is the current and most effective means of treating any invasive species. There's a lot of literature out there. So I think it's, like you said, Ben, it's up to them to determine, you know, what's going to have the most success. And I think providing that information as part of the report to say, this is what we did and this is why we think it gave it the best chance. And if it's not successful, then okay, you know that. But it's, you know, the data is out there for all this stuff. This is nothing new. This has been a problem for a long time, and there's lots of different things that have been tried, some successfully, some not. So I think the burden is on the applicant to figure that out.
Agreed.
So is it known how you would want to put down the glyphosate?
So I'm not a you know, a herbicide or pesticide expert, so you know, I certainly wouldn't be doing it. We would have to you know, outsource that project and, you know, keep our supervision on the project, but we definitely speak with a specialist.
Okay, moving on. I think we beat this one as far as we can go. So I'm hearing now at this point in time, the commission is not in favor of issuing a COC. Melissa, do we have to take a vote on that?
I think it would be helpful if you want to, and that way I can put something down in the record. You know, you don't have to though. You know, I can just, you can authorize me as the commission kind of all agree that I'll memorialize your comments and write a letter.
I mean, we can certainly take a vote.
I mean, you can just say you're taking no action and I will just record that. You know, you're not denying it or issuing it at this time.
Yeah, correct. It's no action.
Yep. So I will just memorialize the comments and get that off for Goddard to see, you know, and just kind of reference the documents that I had shown on the screen in terms of the requirements for the monitoring reports.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Okay,
you very
have a
much,
good night.
everyone. You too.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to Chestnut Hill Farm. I have 30 minutes and my computer's going to reboot. And I can't stop it because I postponed it all day. Sorry. So the next is the discussion regarding Chestnut Hill Farm parking. So we have a plan where they have identified how to accommodate the 32 spaces within the farm.
Yep.
Excuse me. The farm envelope.
They're slowly coming in.
Okay.
Takes a little bit for them to switch over. All right, so the plan that they have resubmitted as of yesterday is on the screen. I don't know if Bob, you might want to talk a little bit more about the specifics of it.
Sure. We were very close to this last time that we met. We were looking for clear determination on the north lot there near the trailhead. And I think the commission had sought an opinion through town council. During that time, we thought it might make sense for us to try to accommodate all the parking needs within the farmstead lot. And so last time we had proposed expanding the CSA lot for multiple reasons, not only for our use associated with the barn events, but also to help support the CSA program, which has been expanding. You know, certainly with COVID, there has been a greater demand for fresh grown vegetables locally. So we had proposed expanding the parking lot further to the north to accommodate going from 14 spaces that were approved originally in 2015 to right now, the way we've just recently revised this to 25 spaces there. And then we would then propose for those events that we needed the additional parking to provide 7 additional spaces off the farm road to the east of the parking lot. So those would only be accessible for those events. Otherwise, we would simply use our parking area. So this takes the north lot out of the question and would hope that this would be easier to determination on. And we think that we would love to sort of meet with the commission on some of these broader interpretations of the conservation restriction, but perhaps over, you know, at another time when we can delve in greater detail.
Okay. Now access to those additional 7 is over the current existing gravel farm road?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Is there any other any comments from commission members on this?
I think it looks like a good solution.
Any other comments?
My only, I guess, overall comment would be once you guys have finalized this plan, you know, obviously submit it back to us because we do need to amend the stormwater permit for this changes. That does not need a public hearing. It just needs to be at a public meeting. So, you know, if the commission is okay with this, you know, we talked a lot about the stormwater aspect the last time and that, you know, this proposal was okay because of that natural low overland area that the water would go. So I think, at least I would believe that this would be, just a quick amendment to the SMP, but that's other comment I had that I was thinking of today.
Just speaking to what Melissa said, I would agree that the minor changes made here relative to the plan that we'd seen previously, I think all the comments made about stormwater apply to this revision. And I think that stormwater approach is perfectly valid on this new scheme.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, so it looks like a solution has been found. Good.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And the amendment shouldn't hold you up if you need to start anything, for the barn, because that, is the same as it has been. So that amendment doesn't need to extend your timeline if you get other approvals.
Okay.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Just to clarify that.
Okay, in terms of, dotting the i's and crossing the t's, the commission does have to take a vote that this is acceptable. So I would need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh,
Okay, all in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete.
Yep.
Guyer,
yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Tosmato.
Yes.
Okay. So I will write up kind of a formal agreement to this. If you guys are putting like a stamp on anything, I can wait until you have that final, and then, we can make it with the SMP and the CR agreement.
Great. Thank
Very well. Thank you very much for working through the entire process here.
Well,
We're
thank you.
pleased that it's worked out this way, and we very much appreciate it. We also had mentioned, we know that we have had other discussions with you all about a variety of different things with regard to the farm and the CR. And we'd like to continue those discussions. We think that they're very, very important. And we have a mutual interest in access to the farm as a whole for visitors. So we had a thought that perhaps it might be an idea for the commission to appoint a person as a liaison to us, and we can then meet on a more regular basis and then come back to the commission as a whole with our thoughts and recommendations for you all to consider.
Yeah, I saw that in your note, and I think that's a great idea. And I would just like to table that until we had the full board here. We're
Yes.
down one member tonight, and I would like to include them as part of this process so that we have everybody present. If that's, okay.
That's absolutely fine. Yes. We just wanted to be sure that you knew that we're very interested in this and want to continue to partner in this positive fashion.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think it, it's good to have a conservation commission member point person that, is easy to get in touch with, to reach out to, and, banter ideas over and so forth. But I would like to have the entire board here to, carry out that entire discussion.
That's great. Well, thank you all very, very much for all of your hard work and the conversations that we've had to date, because it's been very productive.
All right, well, thank you.
Sorry, Mark.
Yes, Judith. Yeah.
That future conversation or future conversations will include a review of where we are with the north parking lot and the challenge we face over the 10 versus 17 versus however many people could squeeze on there on a Sunday morning. Yeah.
Well, we did get a decision based from town council on that lot.
I saw that, which my understanding is that decision is you can only use 10 spaces.
Yes.
But if we're going to, I personally think that merits further discussion, because I think that would be a pretty drastic change to what the town has been experiencing for the previous years. And I think there would be quite a lot of, concern over that in the town. So maybe we
Well-
could just have the conversation next meeting.
Well, we certainly can have the conversation, but there's been no change in that north lot since, the restriction was put in place and we've taken over the oversight of this piece of property.
Yeah.
That's been the number of spots,
Right, but we don't
from the
enforce
beginning
it.
of time, if you will.
Right, but
You know?
as a commission, we're not enforcing it. You can, I
No, we're
was there
not.
the other Sunday and there were 10 cars there and 2 more arrived when I was there, just standing and watching. And a lot of people, I think, would say the parking lot still wasn't full.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of country parking. There's no lines. There's nothing designated there. And honestly, I don't know how formal you need to get. Does it need to be a handicap spot identified? I don't know. It's, I think there's I think this has brought up a lot of open questions with respect to that lot.
Yeah, which I'm just my suggestion would be that we, if we do at the next meeting, identify somebody who can work with DA and the team and kind of, pull out these issues and start some conversation around, well, what are we going to do? What's the Conservation Commission's requirement? How are we going to implement it? How does that affect the trustees? How does it affect the town?
Yeah, and how does it, fit within the CR, which is
Exactly.
the
Exactly, and that has
governing
to be-
document over the property.
And that has to be the starting point. But and I know you need, we need to move on, so I don't want to labor it. But that is my point. It's in the CR, and right now, because there is nothing to stop more than 10 people parking in that lot, we are not complying. My understanding is we are not complying with the letter of the law in relation to the CR.
Does the CR actually say you can't have more than 10 cars, or that you can't construct a parking lot suitable for more than 10 cars? I mean,
well, that's a great
Bob.
example, Jeff, of people have different understandings and interpretation. All I'm asking is that we don't lose sight of that, which was at the last meeting a very important, for me certainly, a very important aha moment. And we're recording these meetings and then they're very clearly in the public domain now. And I do think there would be a lot of concern in the town if people felt that we were going to suddenly say, okay, well, we're roping off half the parking lot, you can only have 10 cars in there. I'm just asking that we do table it for the next meeting to either agree how we're going to, discuss it or have that conversation then.
Rob, did you want to say something?
Yeah, is that all right, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I hear what is being said by several voices here, and I think there was a lot of good discussion around this without coming to conclusions, but some good ideas came up in the discussion at the end of September. To my mind, this is just the kind of thing for us to work with a liaison, which then comes back to the full commission, right? We're not asking for a single decision maker, but just a facilitation for a bit more of an ongoing conversation through a liaison. And I think there's a lot to explore around the questions that are being brought up here.
Yeah, at least from my perspective, counting cars and when the 11th one comes in, telling them to go home is not in the spirit of what the land was purchased for and to be used for.
That's exactly our feeling.
Right.
Well,
And that's not in the spirit of the whole thing. So, if the parking lot can accommodate, 20 mopeds, it can accommodate 20 mopeds. If, cars get smaller, cars get bigger. I think, it should be flexible, and I'm not sure. I think the 10 was identified as just trying to put some sort of number down to restrict, random field parking everywhere. It's just, random I don't want to say mayhem, but, random, just maybe a little bit of chaotic parking, to kind of put some controls around it. But clearly the parking lot can hold more than 10 today. And it was in the CR, as I remember, identified for it to be used for trail use. So,
Not
But
to belabor it, but the CR also specified the configuration of the easement, that area was to be used as parking, and I called it out as being, for no more than 10 vehicles, and included that entire area. And I think we only ran into the problem when when a plan was developed showing it further subdivided. I don't think anything from Aldo's letter nor any discussion that we've had here on the commission, I don't think anybody has proposed limiting, counting cars and limiting parking within that area, nor do I think the CR would require us to do that. But I think, yeah, I think we all have a lot to say, but maybe at the next meeting, we'll have time for us all to fully explore our ideas.
Ben, I think that's well said. And I think that was the point I was trying to make, and I maybe didn't do it quite as eloquently as you did. So, okay. I think we can move on at this point.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay, next up is the discussion on Halloran CR.
Yeah, so I actually talked with Attorney Nealon, who is the Belniak's lawyer, yesterday. Attorney Nealon did admit that the correspondence that both myself and Aldo had been sending him had kind of been sitting on his desk, so he hadn't been talking with the Belniaks as much. And he has requested to discuss kind of with the commission at the next meeting after he talks with his clients. It's my understanding that the Belniaks were in favor of some sort of license, but I did reiterate, the commission made their decision of not kind of a formal cease and desist, but the area should be, stop mowing. So I guess, we can have that conversation at the next meeting, whether or not the commission wants to reevaluate their stance. That's completely up to you. I told them that might not be an option, but it's, I guess he wants to, at least have a more formal discussion with the involved parties. I think because they haven't talked as much as maybe they should have during all of this.
And is that the landowner or the attorney?
I believe both of them would be in attendance.
Okay.
Did they say anything about the shed?
No, so oh no.
Am I on the right topic here?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, no. I remember there was two sheds. One was in it. One, actually, I think, yeah, it was just a corner of it that was in it, right?
Yeah, it was the back end of it or
complicated
something.
one. Yeah, I think that was one that was kind of, you touch it, it'll fall over. But I think that's a good conversation that would be more helpful interactively. So,
Yep.
That we could have a meeting of just CRs at this point.
Regarding the Halloran one in the property owner, I'd just like to say the property owner was wonderful to work with and was very helpful, providing us with site access and to get onto the property. And I would love to give them the opportunity to come and talk with us. And to the extent we can make things easier for them, I would be in favor of it. They worked very well with us, and I don't want to penalize them for maybe somebody they had hired or something having caused some friction. I think the property owners themselves have acted in really in good faith, and I'd like to continue working with them.
Yeah, and I did reiterate that to Attorney Nealon yesterday on the phone, that the Belniaks have been incredible, allowing us access from their property to the Halloran property, and that, they are very informationally driven people, so they like the information, which has been great in the past. When Alan came to our meeting, he wanted to learn, so I think that kind of miscommunication between his lawyer and the Belniaks has caused, a kind of delay in this, so I would agree with Ben. That's all I have for that.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update. we look forward to moving this forward in the future. Next up is the approval of the 2021 meeting calendar.
Yeah, so I uploaded the proposed calendar. You know, it's pretty much the same format as we do every year. I tried to make sure I called out all the holidays, but one never knows. So if there's no,
We don't have
glaring,
many Thursday holidays in this country.
well, it's more the deadlines that are fall on Mondays.
Okay.
But yeah. So, I mean, obviously this is always up to change in special meetings, but if you guys are okay with the general lookout of this, then I can get this posted and kind of sent out to some of our locals that we see a lot.
Anybody have any exceptions?
Good luck if we can ever close this Boy Scout thing.
Okay.
Noted? No. Okay.
All right, so we'll go forward with your proposed meeting calendar. I mean,
Okay.
we don't have a lot of flexibility anyways. We have to meet every 3 weeks, like it or not. So
Mhm.
that's just the way it goes, based on the Wetlands Protection Act. So, all right, and conservation science agent report. Anything on that?
I first want to welcome Katie as our recording secretary.
You know what? Shame on me. I should have done it at the beginning of the meeting. I am so sorry. That was rude.
It's all right. Well, yeah, so Katie will be here and saving me from doing minutes from now on. I'm going to ask her to do our last meeting too, just to kind of catch us up. That will be a huge time saver for me. I think we discussed quickly last meeting, as she'll probably hear, she's got some good experience with conservation as well. So I'm excited and I'm very happy that she's here.
And Melissa does a great job of making us look good.
That's one
Well,
thing.
hello. Nice to meet you all. Let me know if you need anything.
Well, yeah, so this is Katie. If you guys have any questions, let me or her know for minutes and we'll move on from there. The other things under.
Well, great and welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing is the budget. I sent out the proposed budget. It's not very exciting. I sent kind of an email today. I'll blame Russ on my rant of the budget. At my last email, I was talking to him about other things and then it got out of control. I think like last year, wouldn't hurt to submit another memo asking for staff. I don't think it's likely for this year, given all of the restrictions, pandemics, etc. Without a lot of new growth, it's hard to have more staff people put on. So the only budget changes that I really made was that the Registry of Deeds recording fees are going up to 105, and I increased the stewardship line to 30,000 as we've been trying to, slowly increase it each year, and especially given, the Halloran CR should be finished, hopefully. We'll want to start working on access and trail maintenance and etc. for that. So we want to make sure that we do have some funds available to start working on that property.
So the recording fees went to 105 from what?
From 75. So it's not a huge jump, but it's a jump.
Well, from as a percentage, it is.
Yeah, it's a 50% jump.
Yeah,
That's a big jump.
it is. It was interesting. So it went into effect the first of the year. And that's in case we just need to record any enforcement orders or etc. that we have the fees to do that.
It's not a $5 increase.
No, it's not a $5.
So, okay.
That they went up all across the state for everyone, for everything. So watch out for your personal matters as well.
Yeah. Okay, do we need a vote to approve?
Yes.
Okay, do I hear the,
We're
I have
going
a
to
motion
include
to-
that letter though, right? Asking for more money for another person?
I think
we have to keep beating on it because you're not going to get it if we don't.
I agree with
I
Russ.
agree.
And we added a lot of stuff last year. We might not have added a lot this year, but you've absorbed it. And you're falling behind.
Yeah,
We
especially
need the help.
right. I've really, realized during COVID where, people are home, people are calling, and I want to be able to help. The more phone calls I get or emails, I try my best to respond as fast as possible, but my response is slower, than I'd like sometimes. While sometimes that's only a day, that it can slow people down, whether it's building permits or, going out to sites, whatever. So if there are, if you want me to draft something, or maybe, the group who did it last year could, even submit the same kind of letter. The budget itself is due next week, and I'm not sure when the actual hearings start, but that might be, a time to raise that concern again as well, because I think it's valid. I'm very thankful we have a recording secretary now. It's a huge start for me. As you can tell, the last couple of meetings, I haven't had time to do minutes. So we're definitely, we have a lot of applications coming in. People are starting to build again. So there's easily a way to show that we need hours. And I'm happy to provide any information that you guys might need.
If you end up writing the letter, Melissa, I have the big sheet of notes that I put together for the Board of Selectmen's meeting that sort of enumerated all the things that we're hoping to enable you to do.
Yep. Okay, that'd be helpful. Yeah, it's totally up to you guys. I can definitely put together the commission's thoughts. They're the same as last year, and I can put, anything new that I've kind of seen or have been working on into it as well, and kind of add that. We have a new budget software now, so I'll have to figure out how to upload that and where, but we'll get it there regardless.
Okay.
That's about it for me.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept the proposed budget as Melissa has submitted?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
You're muted.
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yeah.
Pasamato.
Yes.
Right. The only other thing is I sent out that downtown bylaw right before the meeting that the planning board / EDC has been working on. I think the biggest part that might impact us is special permits require a major site plan, which triggers SMP. So I kind of have to read through it a little bit more. The lot sizes are a lot smaller, or allowed lot sizes will be smaller. So, I might comment or send out, a comment to the commission saying, do we want to, make a certain circumstance, whether it's a policy, to start to include in amendments to the SMP regulations in terms of the downtown district. If that lot size is, a quarter of an acre big, then, is an SMP really feasible?
Yeah, right.
So that's something that I'll kind of carve through a little bit again. It's a short document, but it's still, wordy. So trying to dissect it a little bit more. But if anyone has comments as they're looking through it, I think in like 2 weeks, they asked for the deadline on the 6th. So just send them to me directly and I can input it to that matrix that they have sent out as well.
Okay.
So Melissa, I also saw that you forwarded something from Karen Gilligan about the paving of Deerfoot Road. Can I ask that we add that to the agenda for the next meeting? Because it would be really, and I'm happy to go out there and look at it when it rains next week, but it would be really good if we can say this has now resolved all of the issues, because every other week it feels like we see something else come up from the residents and abutters. So it would be really nice to be able to say it's closed.
Yeah, and I had reached out to the 122 residents that were concerned about the runoff from 124 with that plan that Bowler had proposed with that swale at the shared property line, and haven't heard back, either way. I haven't heard from the Deerfoot residents in a little bit. So, there's nothing new to really report on that.
Yeah.
Paving.
Yeah, my guess is when they get the trucks down this road on Saturday, that'll prompt them to come back to us.
Yeah, but I will definitely put that on for the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
All right, anything else from anybody?
I just a question for Melissa. Have we heard back from TRC?
For
That
For
the
what?
LSP that we went out and looked at the,
for the dump.
yeah,
So I went out with the Board of Health agent, Paul Bazinski, as well. And the Board of Health is determining, so the state has determined that it is a local Board of Health jurisdiction, the dump. So the Board of Health is determining the best paths forward. It sounds like, and I can forward my latest correspondence with Paul, that the Board of Health would really be the one who would kind of move the cleanup forward. They would be the one to kind of create the plan in conjunction with the Conservation Commission, and kind of discuss funding for it. You know, I think he and the Board of Health have talked with Capital Committee and that it wouldn't be a capital expense necessarily. But Paul is out until the end of the month, I believe, and they were going to bring it up once he returned. So I'll forward Paul's latest email because I had just followed up with him afterwards, because his recollection was, you know, it was more of a visual impairment versus, or an aesthetic issue versus a contamination issue. And that's probably why nothing has been done. But at this time, there's nothing that the Board of Health is requiring us to do in terms of additional testing or kind of immediate cleanup. But eventually a plan will be created, but it sounds like we could, just take the stuff and consolidate it off the top, and then put the loam, appropriate amount of loam and seed on top versus a complete removal or capping.
Right.
So I'll definitely forward you that. My email has been wonky lately. I'm sure you guys have seen. I'm sorry if I sent this 3 times. So if you think you're missing something, please don't hesitate to text or call me. I apologize for any missing docs. I'm not sure what's kind of going on there.
Yeah. Mark?
Yes, Matt.
2 quick items. One, as you probably all know, the Park Central DEP site walk is on Tuesday.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the
And the
27th.
question was, who from LE do you want to attend? Do you want both Chris and I to attend, or just myself, or
Preference.
do you have a preference?
Honestly, I leave that up to you and Chris to make that determination based on history of the application.
Okay.
Right. So if Chris feels that he's got, all the history, he's the best person, fine. If he thinks that he's got a lot of the history and you've got the latest and it requires both of you, okay. I really need to look to Lucas Environmental to make that determination.
Okay, that's
is
fine.
Dustin O'Neill going to be there?
I haven't heard back from Amy. I was going to follow up tomorrow with her because I did send it to her. So I'm hoping that she has put it on her schedule, but I will definitely follow up. That is my intention, at least.
Yeah, DEP has asked for, I think, the list of attendees on Monday.
Yes.
And there's a questionnaire that needs to be filled out.
Yep. So if anyone else wants to attend,
COVID questionnaire.
yeah, please let me
And-
know.
And they want to limit the number of people.
Yeah.
For safety reasons. That was one. Yeah, what's the other one, Matt?
I have one personal item, but I'll save that until after you're adjourned.
Okay.
All right. That's all I have.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote.
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Geyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Night.
Pasamato.
Yes.
All right.
And I haven't rebooted yet. Amazing.